All right, we're live. Welcome to Sweetcast, everybody. I'm promise this is going to be a 45-minute stream. I've been doing terrible with posting videos. If you've been disappointed that you're watching for video notifications and you're just not seeing them come, it's because I've had a terrible week with videos. So apologies for that. Um, I've just been busy, but it's good. It's all good stuff. I think the problem is in the evenings I've got so much to cram in. Um, so what I did is I decided to pace myself with some of the different projects that I have, and one of those is Dracula. We'll talk about that. I'm going to let some people get in here first, but we'll get everything warmed up here. The ordeal is here. Hello. First, you could also post first. I like the smooth move though of just saying hello, uh, because first has become cliche. Paul Riley is here. Hello. He says, "Hey Clint." Hey. I as promised, I have the arcade showing in the background. Oh, I should have you have two games on it. I should have picked one so you can see the intro stuff playing in the back. People are like, does it even work? It works. It does. I've got my Brian Shearer. I think I already mentioned that though, huh? My Rhinox from Brian Shearer. I want to fill this whole wall up with stuff. It's going to be awesome. Uh, yeah. So let's see. Amit Reina, how are you? I'm doing very well. It's been a good day. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I gotta say. Damien is here. What's up? Who knows is here. I've seen some names here I don't recognize. Hello, who knows? Jasper Plan 9 is here. Hello. Is it a pie? Oh, Raspberry Pi? No, this is I'm reversed here. This is an arcade one up. So I do have a Raspberry Pi and I've got it. I 3D printed a little case for it and stuff, and we've got some old retro games on there. But this is a pre-made arcade machine. Comes with two games. And at first I thought, I don't know, like maybe this is not the right. I've always wanted an arcade machine, but maybe this is not the right one. It's a little smaller than a typical arcade machine. But now that I have it, I think it's actually perfect because I can move the thing by myself. So I like it. They're not sponsoring the channel either, though they could. They could send me a arcade machine and I would say good things. What's up? What's up, peeps? Hello. Damien is here. One ups are cool. They are. They're fun. And it's within. You have the asteroids one. That's awesome. It's within reason. These are. Oh, there we go. Now it's gonna just go ahead and play the animation from the one of the games. Anyway, they're really fun. I enjoy it. It's fun to play it with the kids. The only thing is I wish that there were more games on it. There are a lot of ways to mod these and put lots of games on them. I could do a Raspberry Pi in here. I already have one, so I could stick it in there. But there's something about just the simplicity of having a game. 4 players. I don't know. It's fun. I like it. So I've been kind of wanting a Pac-Man one too. Maybe like Mrs. Pac-Man. That could be fun. I don't know. Also a fighting game. So I think 3 arcade machines I would be happy with. See how it went from 1 to 3? That's how it goes. Yeah, it's just nostalgic. Just having the whole cabinet back there. It has like the same exact art that you get in the arcade machine from the original one. And it's just great. It's fun. Don't exaggerate. We all you are the Hulk's brother. I've got a famous family. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. All right. So I did invite some friends, and I promised that this is not going to go long. The stream is I'm thinking 45 minutes is where we're going to go. I'm going to stick to that. And if it doesn't matter who's talking, if I'm talking, I'm shutting it down at 45 minutes. It'll be good. That's because I've got stuff to do. But we're going to talk a little bit more about Dan Slott. I did the video today, and the reason why I look at this stuff, I get it. It is kind of funny. Like there's a little bit of that, but part of it is just emphasizing, okay, let me share the screen. I'll get through this. Here's Dan Slott, and he is getting what I would describe as possibly harassed on Twitter. What he would describe as harassed on Twitter. He's been harassed for 2 days straight by his definition, but because of who's harassing him, it doesn't count because he should be better. This is so weird, and it's all over this one comic that he wrote. So here's the deal. This is how it works. The reason why you open up a comic book and you read a comic book and it feels like there is a slanted, very far left ideology is because you might have some ideologues that are writing the books, but also you have people that are afraid of those ideologues. They're on Twitter and they are afraid of them. Someone like Dan Slott, I don't think he actually subscribes to all of the beliefs down the line. But the problem is, if you, and it's been years like this, you write a book, you do the art for a book, and everybody's going to go over it and say why it's problematic. This is exactly how it works. And if you want Twitter to not be upset with you every single time you put a new issue out, you've got to change your tune. Like you've got to change things. So then it became that they're trying to not only appease this crowd of Twitter people, but then they thought, how can I make these Twitter people happy? How can I make these 12 weirdos happy? So then they go over the line in trying to make things so progressive, making up new firsts, like whatever. We finally have a female Wonder Woman or whatever, like anything that they're going to say. They pretend like it's a first, like it's some kind of landmark. And that's why comics have gotten so ridiculous. Disney was the same. And I sat through these classes when I was in college where we would go through, this was terrible. I always called these one of those classes. We would sit there and go over communication stuff, and we'd look at Disney movies and we'd try to pick out what is problematic and what was like, what would show some kind of deeper hatred and racism. And even at the time, I knew it was insane, but you got to just get through the class and get a grade. So it's basically, that was kind of, I would write papers. That's where it all starts, and it continues here because you get rewarded for finding problematic. Okay, so when there's no problematic to find, they're going to start making up problematic. That's how it works every single time. Rob says, Clint ignoring chat again. Can I just ignore Rob and not chat? Is that possible? Rob, you actually have the link, man. You could come in. I don't know what time it is, though, for you in Australia, but yeah, well, appreciate everyone's coming in. We got 37 people now. All right. So Dan Slott posted this. We're going to look at a few more posts, but he said, if you keep quote tweeting me and dumping on me, you have to know that I'm going to block you, right? It's kind of common sense that I'm going to cut off your access to that. I don't see how that's a hard thing to get. So the people are getting upset with him for mass blocking now. That's what's beginning to happen here. But it's we're not talking about Comicsgate or anything like that. We're talking about all of his fans that he's now finding himself in a position that he's got to block them because they're looking for a problem to solve. He also posted this, hey, in order to focus on getting work done and comics made, I'm pulling back from conversations about Franklin and the Fantastic Four. I'm going to pause right there and just catch you all up if you didn't watch my video today. Basically, so Franklin Richards, Fantastic Four son, right, has this is a little outside my wheelhouse because I've never been into X-Men, really. He's both a mutant and both has cosmic powers. On one page, you find out that he doesn't really have this X gene. He's not really a mutant, and therefore he can't live on their new dimension or whatever, Krakoa. He cannot live there anymore. He's kicked out of the club. So normally you'd think, oh, okay, there's a twist of events happening here in a comic book. Go figure. It's not that interesting of a twist, but it's there. I guess it's an effort. But in this case, because everyone is so focused on it being some kind of an allegory for today or LGBTQ rights or something like that, instead of just saying it's X, I mean, it's fiction. You could draw that conclusion if you'd like to, that's fine, but it's never like, it's still about mutants with superpowers. So what happened instead is people started calling him a turf. What is that? A trans exclusionary radical feminist, something like that. I think that was it. Yeah, turf. And so then it became about something that it really wasn't. This is exactly why in future Dan Slott stories, if he is worried about the crazy people going after him, exactly what he's going to do is try and appease them. This is why self-censorship happens in comics and in other, it also happens in comedy big time. There's a lot of comedians that are starting to speak out more about it because they're afraid of people on Twitter trying to control exactly what they can and cannot do, even when it really ought not be offensive. It's crazy. This should be nonpartisan issue too. Like they're making offenses out of nothing. It's crazy. Okay, I'm looking at the chat here. AL is here. Yeah, it's dumb. The storyline could be dumb. I heard that the story wasn't great, and that happens. That's fair to be upset, like, or be like, yeah, I didn't like it, but to make it something that's not is the crazy thing here. All right, Eric. I'm gonna say your last name wrong. I do it to everybody though, so it means you're part of the club. Is it Kennett? Is that right? Eric Kennett, I know you're a fantastic artist, so I appreciate you dropping by. All right. Death Curse is here as well. Hey dudes, hey Clint. Hello. I remember he was just a normal kid. Yeah, things may have changed. I don't know. I didn't follow his whole history, but it's a bit silly. But this is what happens. And so at the same time, when you say, hey, why is there so much ideology in comic books? Why have they become like they're trying to be very safe and they can only portray women in a certain way? I mean, and I'm not talking about appearance wise, I'm talking about how they act. You can only portray women like they're always friends all the time. There's never conflict. They're always on the same team. Like, why is that? That's antithetical to storytelling. Why is this happening? It's because creators are afraid. So what could the solution be? You could just get off Twitter. Does that save you from potential problems that can happen? I don't know. I mean, was Jay Lee on Twitter? I don't think so, because I think his response to Tom King came from Instagram. I don't think it came from Twitter at all. I don't know. Honestly, I think you would just have to ignore something like this. What can you do? But you cannot make them happy, which is, I think, what Dan Slott's been sort of trying to do here. Though to his credit, he's been pretty eager to post anything else. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down here a bit. Here we go. Lots of supported. How are you doing during this pandemic? Phone calls with family and friends. That has nothing to do with anything. Was this the 19th? Yeah, it's the 19th. Probably the how are you doing with people dumping on you on Twitter. That could be a thing. Here he says, a fan told me Franklin doesn't belong to the Fantastic Four book just because his first appearance was in Fantastic Four, because Wolverine's first appearance was in Hulk, and he doesn't belong there. But be fair, if Hulk gave birth to Wolverine in that issue, he would. Also, that'd be one heck of a cover. Did someone do it up here? No. I don't know. This is the thing. I think that there ought to be a place for fans to show outrage over stories. Like, if you're really talking about the story and maybe you're upset, like, hey, he belongs in X-Men. That's where he belongs. There should be a place where you can have that discussion, and probably not with the creator. that's the strange thing that Twitter has done, is that it makes them part of the conversation, and that can be nice sometimes, but sometimes you want to just go blow off steam about a property that you're interested in, and that's all it comes down to. And I don't know. I don't think that that Twitter is the place for that. It's not helping. This is random. Ethan's more pear-shaped. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. People are becoming increasingly more narcissistic. Every identity group thinks X-Men represents them specifically because they think they're the only groups that matter. I think you nailed that on the head. They're seeing too many parallels, or they're forcing parallels, and then it became part of the writing. Like it's built into there that it is exactly a parallel and it represents them. You're going to be disappointed when it doesn't. However, in theory, if you're a fan, you have a right to do that. You can draw a parallel, that's for sure. But I'm not sure hashing it out with the creator matters. It really doesn't. And like, as the creator, should you be in a position where you're defending it? I don't think you have to. I don't think you should. Not only, I don't, this is it's crazy, because if people are talking about these characters and your stories, that is a good thing. Like, that should be the ultimate joy for a writer, that people are actually talking about the content of your story. I'll tell you, that's the most exciting thing to me, is when people say, hey, I read Downcast. Here, I think this about that character. That's pretty flattering, the fact that people are reading it and that they have an opinion. That's great. Rather than talking about how many variant covers there are, or talking about the individuals behind the scenes, creator, like there's all sorts of things you could be talking about. But if they're talking about the story, that is a good thing. Should a creator ever be defending their story, though? I don't think so to angry mobs. I think you should just continue telling your story. Yes, even Dan Slott. I think you should just tell your story. Even if it's a garbage story, maybe they need to put somebody else on the book, or whatever. Fans can have their opinion. But this is, I think, where the rift that has happened in comics comes from, is directly from people and creators, fans and creators, fighting and arguing over the stories. It doesn't make sense, and it sort of flips things on the head. This is not really, I think, a healthy way for it to go. Let's see. Rockbiter says, I honestly haven't cared a single bit about anything the big two have done for a year now. For me, Spawn and Comicsgate are all that exists now. Yeah, I'll tell you, there's so many books out there that I want, and many of them have been published so many years ago. And I'm all open for new books to come. In fact, The Last Ronin, I've already talked about that. That book was fantastic. That's a new book that has my interest. It's right up my alley too. I love the Turtles. So that's interesting. It's something different and unique and fun, and I'm excited about that. And I think the reason why it did so well is because there isn't enough of books like that currently that get people excited. But I am getting excited to buy some older stuff, some older hardbacks, omnibus, Very good point. Oh yeah, Rockbiter says, and of course Alterna. Yeah, Alterna's got some good stuff. Let's see. Joshua says, Spider-Man has been on life support since Secret Wars. Venom was basically the series finale for the character. Yeah, I haven't been interested. In fact, Dan Slott's Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, was the last Spider-Man that I read. I read to the end of that, and I read Spider-Man #1 that followed Superior Spider-Man, and I just fell off. That's how it happened. And I'm not sure that it had anything to do with any of this, other than I just got bored of the story of what Dan Slott was doing at the time. Let's see. Let's see. I feel bad for Big Two readers who are still on board. Yeah, I wonder too, if you are following, I would be a little nervous about a series getting canceled. That has happened to me too often, where I'll be following a series and it gets canceled. Right now, especially with DC, I've got to wonder how it's affecting their numbers, because books are getting canceled, and that puts a bad taste in your mouth for sure. All right, what does Rob have to say? I just got talked into doing a Kickstarter consult for a friend's friend. Help me. Kickstarter. You should tell them to try Indiegogo. That'd be the first thing. Consult. People ask me about doing consultations sometimes for crowdfunding, and I still don't feel like I know. I make videos about what you ought to do, but yeah, Rob, I hear you, man. That's it's a little scary because you don't know, especially if their book looks bad, and then you're like, your book looks bad, so what do you do from there? And I don't know. It's not. No one's actually showed me their books that has asked for consults, to be fair, but that is a lot of pressure. Let's see. I've been catching up on Liefeld's podcast. It's excellent. He's the OG. Yeah, man. The one thing I love about Rob Liefeld is he will say whatever he wants to say, and he's very truthful about it, including the DC stuff well in advance. He was saying exactly what he wanted. Totally agree with you there. Yeah, do Indiegogo instead. It's activewear. It's not even a comic book, Rob, but he wants a consult. You could tell him about crowdfunding and activewear. Man, that's a totally different industry. I don't know. I would be curious is there a community for it? Is there anything else to go around? We could ask Shane Davis though. Shane, do you know much about activewear?
No, I don't know anything about activewear.
Okay. Neither do I, but Rob's got to figure it out. He's got a short period of time to do so.
Better YouTube that. I don't know. It's the quickest way to learn something is to YouTube it. What is this Dan Slott thing? I'm coming in late to this. What is up with this? Because I heard his name earlier today. Did he do something really stupid?
He did something maybe stupid, but not as stupid as the reaction called for. So this is actually a good time to recap because we got more people coming into the chat. So basically, Dan Slott wrote a page where Franklin Richards, son of Reed Richards, who has both cosmic powers and is also a mutant, finds out that he's not really a mutant. It's just that he wished so hard that he was. I don't know. Somehow he passed the test or something. So there's a storyline in a page, but the problem is that the X-Men. Everybody concludes that the X-Men is a parallel for LGBTQ issues. Right. So because he wasn't really an X-Men, now he is a trans radical exclusionary feminist. So people are flipping out because of the parallels they've made to real life. So
wasn't X-Men like more of a civil rights thing back in the day? Like and even Stan Lee, I don't even know if he owned up to it 100%. Like I think he would draw a line to it, but I don't think he meant it was that 100%. My point is X-Men could probably represent anything over a long enough period of time.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the X-Men had going for it, is that you can see parallels if you feel like an outsider, but you want to feel special because you're an outsider. Like the X-Men, I can see where the appeal is,
I mean, when I was reading X-Men, I was like probably like 11 to like 14 or something. To me, I would just see like references to change and puberty and not fitting in, or whatever. That's why I don't understand like what X-Men, when people bandstand that like X-Men's supposed to stand for something. I never really understand. Like it's like, dude, that it could stand for a million things. Like and what character? I mean, Deadpool stands for one thing. Weapon X program something else. It's more of a government conspiracy type thing. There's so many different things to X-Men. But anyways, going back to this Dan Slott thing. That sounds like that had to have some corporate approval. Like he didn't just write that. Like so.
Oh yeah, and the other thing too is I'm sure he's got. I'm not a huge fan of everything Dan Slott writes, but he's a competent writer, and generally speaking, you have a story arc. And so if something like this changes, he's probably going to make some kind of a point and bring things back to status quo. That's a point I made earlier, because I've heard Dan Slott himself say that. That's generally what he tries to do. But in this case, yeah, here I have someone specific. Again, don't contact any of these people. But he's referring to Dan Slott as a TERF. So that's a trans exclusionary radical feminist.
So there was like, I started reading the Jonathan Hickman X-Men when he first came on. And there was a weird scene in there that I could tell the seed was planted that they were going to do more with Fantastic Four. Because right away, like there's something like the X-Men are stopping Sabretooth and Mystique, and the Fantastic Four jump in. And then X-Men come out, or the Fantastic Four stop Sabretooth, and the X-Men come out and say, well, you have to surrender him to us. He can't go to court for his crimes. You have to give him to us. And there was like this weird dialogue moment there where Cyclops basically said to Reed Richards and Sue Storm that they were coming for their son, whatever his name is. What's his name again?
Franklin.
So it's like, it seemed like this seed's been planted there a long time. And as much as everybody's giving him crap for it, this is probably have more honestly to do with Hickman than him.
That could be true. Yeah. Because Jonathan Hickman's the one that sort of architects
all that off. Yeah. So that's very strange. It's funny though. Cause it's funny when these things happen, cause it's like, SJW is very much catered to these people, and like their clapbacks, tweets, talk down to certain groups, whatever. But they kind of cultivated this audience of cancel culture that will turn on them eventually. And it's funny that that's kind of what you're pointing out and talking about.
Yeah. Somebody in my comment section today, I made a video on this. There's a little bit more development, but somebody said that I love seeing a circular firing squad. And to me, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I'm naming the stream, because that's the same, the bed that he made, that's what you got to lie in. But I think the problem, like, we'll look at this tweet right here. TERFs have glommed onto the idea that trans youth aren't really trans, and that they're claiming to be trans because it's cool and in, and that it's an exceptionally damaging viewpoint to the trans community. Here's the thing, though. He's a mutant. He's not trans. Like, again, like, drawing too many conclusions to make it all real life really takes any fun out of it. Like, why does it have to be an allegory for current issues?
The funniest thing about all of this is I know there's an interview out there somewhere with Stan Lee, because I've heard there's a couple of because I was a huge X-Men fan. There's one where Stan Lee talks when he came up with the X-Men. He had the same problem every time he made a new superhero. How did they get their superpowers? And that was where he was like, oh, they just have a X gene and they just turn into mutants. And that was his thing, right? That it was like, so, problem solved. I can just write myself out of this. They just have superpowers. There's no radioactive spider or getting caught in a gamma bomb or whatever. And then I've also heard years later, like, oh, Professor X is supposed to be, and again, he goes back to the original material, more like a Martin Luther King, and like maybe Magneto's more of a Malcolm X. And then today they're making into being like a whole, thing about it. This is just such a weird cycle, because if these characters are always supposed to represent something political at any given point in time, when honestly, Stan Lee just didn't want to come up with a million different origin stories. This is kind of funny in a weird way. It is, because it's a lot of people attacking somebody for probably taking notes, doing what the company said needs to be done. And then, because here's the thing about Dan Slott, is he used to be an editor at one point in time. I think he started out in editorial at DC, maybe, or maybe Marvel. I don't know which it was. I feel like he takes marching orders pretty well. Like, so it's just funny. This is funny.
Which is probably one of the reasons, the contributing factor why he gets to write so many of these big titles.
Right.
For extended periods of time, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, because he's probably fairly easy to work with. He does what the editors tell. But it's funny because even the people attacking him, like I walked into this cold, but I remember that page, and I was like, that page just doesn't fit with the rest of this content that Hickman was writing with X-Men.
Mm.
And then they eventually did a X-Men Fantastic Four crossover, which I didn't read, but people bought it. And then now you tell me it's like, it's always been there. This isn't, a Dan Slott thing. But
Yeah.
Congratulations on the Fatal closeout.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I pulled up Starlight Cats here, and you're doing really good. you're getting let's see, 14 days up. You already extended the campaign, correct?
Yeah. So 14. Cool. We got 2 weeks. 2 weeks left on this campaign. I'm working on it at the same time, so that's why my camera's off. But it's a lot of work campaigning.
It's exhausting, huh?
Well, I've been trying to YouTube like almost every day, and then we had a storm, and I didn't for like maybe one day. But it's just I don't like saying it's a grind, but I feel like I'm losing sense of time.
Yeah.
You extend it another 30 days. I actually don't like that because it just seems like I don't know. I think I would like 30-day campaigns if that's all there was. And I'm afraid one day somebody's going to say these things are like, 3-month campaigns. I couldn't imagine campaigning for 3 months.
No. Yeah, and there's I don't know. So I've done my first 2 campaigns were just 30-day campaigns. I didn't extend them, but they went in demand. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like you get the bump at the ending and people kind of know what to expect. And then over time, if you're still, you're going to be posting videos still, you get this trickle of backers that just come over time as it's in demand.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know, it's during the campaign time. It feels like go time.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. Because I even noticed like, Eric, Battlebrick Road, he's had quite a few backers come in after he closed out, because I was on his stream when he closed out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people still come in. It's like, I don't know how they come in though, if it's just posting videos or just they're late to the game or
yeah, I think being on live streams, posting videos, for me that's my biggest driver, is just my regular videos that I post. It's advertising to, even on a really bad day, it's like 400 people see it. So
which you're really awesome at that. I don't know how you manage that. That just seems like a lot to do in the day. I sound so lazy. Yeah. I'm like, everything seems like work.
No, I mean you're drawing.
Yeah.
So I'm not really doing much drawing. So
yeah. But how's Charlie doing? I haven't seen him around in a while.
Charlie's good. He's been a little busy because he took on an advertising job. So freelance. So
right.
He's finishing this week and he'll be around a bit more, he said. So
cool.
But yeah, he's doing good. He saw a little bit of a newer page, and it was cool to see progress coming along. But yeah, I think he's doing well. But yeah, it's good. So 2 weeks left. I'm going to copy this and post it in the chat. Starlight Cats. I know we've talked about this before, but now that you're so practiced.
yeah.
Tell us about it.
So, which we posted some new art. If you go down, scroll down a little bit. This thing, the Merlion, is wounded and injured, and he's running from his enemy. Picks the furthest into the galaxy from his, his opponent or the nemesis, and decides to disperse the 5 starlight jewels. Now, these jewels harness the power of a star each. If they're ever reunited, he will resurrect. So it's a bit of a thing here. So the cats are cat aliens. So they're tracking his energy signature to Earth. And, in the Ashcan, which this is a spread from the Ashcan, we'll talk about that part of the story. But the main story follows a little girl, Rebecca Chow, who is Singaporean, who finds the 5th lost jewel. and it bonds to her. Now that's the dilemma: is that this thing that has the power of a star is bonded to a little 8-year-old girl, and the cat's aliens have to take her back to the cat's planet to get it, one, off of her because of that, but two, because she, the prophecy of the Merlion resurrecting to save the planet, the cat's planet, is now in flux. So basically, you followed this girl on this weird, crazy, kind of like the last Starfighter adventure, where she just ends up in the middle of a war and supposed to be, the tipping point of the outcome and everything. A little bit of a twist ending at the end with her and the Jewel, but it's pretty much, it's cats in space. I was a creator of Dexstar, the DC character. A lot of people seem to like that character a lot, so I kind of came up with an idea for this book 3 years ago, and been working on it with my wife off and on. So it's just something we wanted to really put out there and get. It's like one of those projects you put down and it just rolls around in the back of your head, and it's like an itch where you just have to put it out and get it out there, type thing. But I mean, believe it or not, it's pretty much stayed the same the whole time. It's not really changed too much. So
that's cool. I'm a little slow, but this is the first time I made the connection. He's called a Merlion, and that's because he's like a mermaid, but a Merlion.
So the Merlion is actually it's kind of like a symbol of Singapore, kind of like their Statue of Liberty. It's not a real character; it's more of a symbol. Yeah. So we got permission from the Singapore government to use the symbol. There's certain guidelines you have to do because it is kind of like a public symbol. So, and but I redesigned it. It doesn't look this nice, the statue. It's kind of basic. So I kind of redesigned him a bit, but it's supposed to be a symbol. There's an ancient kind of myth about this Persian prince or something finding when he found Singapore, there was a lion on it, but there wasn't supposed to be a lion on the island. But then there's also this but it's supposed to be a symbol of, the lion that supposedly he found in Singapore, the island. And then the other part is because we're a port country, it has a mermaid's tail. Like, it's a symbolic, it's not even a real creature, but it looks like something out of Greek mythology or something. Especially since they were originally a British colony, so like some of their I don't know, crest and stuff of the government look very British. So they kind of sculpted in kind of in a lion profile with a mermaid tail. It just kind of looks like something that would be like a British crest or something.
Yeah.
So cool. I kind of took it and built I just like the look of it. So I kind of took it and built this mythical story out of it. And I was like, it's a cosmic, kind of like a Shinron, but of space, that that is a protector and space god of these cats, aliens. So right now we're working on pages where I have the cat's planet and the city and stuff, which is funny. I'm figuring out what cat buildings would look like and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, kind of fun, but it's just sci-fi stuff. Think about more like Green Lanterns, but imagine if all the Green Lanterns were cats. So, but it's a kind of like for everyone thing. It's not too gory, and if there is or anything like that, but if there is any type of battle damage or anything, it's all like alien blood, like you could see there with the Merlion. Nothing really gory, just that's probably the most will be in it. So it is kind of like for everyone type age demographic thing there. But that's our main protagonist. We have a John Malin and a Kenneth Rocafort cover up, and that's pretty much it.
That's cool. Yeah, really, really cool. And I do like that you're doing like truly an all ages book, like for everyone. When I say all ages, this is the Kenneth Rocafort cover.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, so he nailed like the personality of the cats too. That was the thing, is like so my wife actually designed the cats. I didn't. I just designed their suits. So she has sketches of what the cats would look like, fitting their personality in different breeds and all this, and then I took that and designed the suits. So I didn't. It's a weird. It's weird how all the cats have a personality to their design. So but I have to credit my wife with a big part of that. I basically just put spacesuits on them, So And it's funny because I handed that off to Kenneth and he nailed it. Now, John was doing this to prank me, but if you'll notice the green cat, which is this small teddy bear looking kitten cat, is now like big and ferocious in that one. Like John's just trolling me. He was like, let me take the smallest cat and make him like prison buff. And I'm like, all right.
That's funny. Well, they're cool covers. I think they all, the thing with variant covers sometimes is they'll look like very different characters, but I like that they're just all really good artists, but they captured the same, like you're saying, the same look. It's Starlight Cats.
It's funny. I didn't show John that the one shoots lasers out of its tail, and but it's in the design of the suit. You can see there's a little glowing tip on his tail, and he just drew it. Like I didn't even see a rough or anything. I was like, just do whatever. And
it's just logical.
Well, that's the thing is I've done that before in other things. Like I did some Red Lantern characters, and then they ended up in a cartoon. And even though I never got to draw it, like I took a Red Lantern bad guy and made him the size of Kilowog, so they would fight. So they would be the two big guys on the team. And to me, Kilowog always kind of looked like a pig. This other guy named Scalox, I gave him kind of like a goat type skull head. And I just figured they would be like each Color Lantern team would have a different barn animal, big guy that would fight. Like eventually one guy would have a chicken versus Kilowog, goat versus Kilowog, whatever. But it's funny when they made the Green Lantern animated series that was on Cartoon Network, right away Kilowog was the big guy punching Scalox. So they were fighting one another. And it's fun when you design things and you do see other artists pick up on your design elements and use them. So again, that was that with John. It was just like one of those coincidence things. So yeah, that's the Ashcan book that'll have that Merlion spread, and it's got 16 pages of content, but we're also doing like a making of.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of like a flip book. So 16 pages of that, 16 pages of making of stuff.
Nice. Well, looks really cool. Have you seen this SNL skit Laser Cats?
Seems like I have.
It's way over the top. I thought it was funny. I laughed at it, but
yeah,
that's what it reminded me of, cat shooting lasers.
So how did you think? How long does it usually take you to do fulfillment? I'm just curious because I know you've done it a couple of times.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different theories behind. There's a couple different approaches behind it. Mine is to just get it done, like rip it off like a Band-Aid. So my first fulfillment took me, it was like 920 something packages. That took me like 8 days, I think, to do it. And I was really figuring things out. The second campaign, which was slightly less, not many less though, it was like 800 something, high 800s. I ended up with, it took about 3.5 days, I would say. So, and the key there was hiring some help, because there's so much that's mindless, just work, repetitive stuff that any relatively competent person can do. So yeah, I offered to a few of the teenagers in the neighborhood, like, hey, you guys want to earn some extra money? And they were down. So getting them to stuff packages and stuff, that really helped speed things up. So
yeah, there's some kids I may get to help me out that at the local, like at our kickboxing gym, that like the youth, I could probably get some help, I guess. I just didn't really think about it that way. There probably is like a lot of mindless packing and bagging and stuff.
There is. And if you want to just save the money too, you can totally do it by yourself.
Yeah.
My first one, I had a little bit of help from family, but not like most of it. Probably 85% of it I just did by myself. So
yeah. Yanzi does a lot of shipping with her business because she sells online and stuff. So we have all that underway. It's just actual, labor, setting out the books, signing books, bagging books, that stuff that I kind of like, I wonder how long that takes. It seems like it could take a while, but it's not too bad. That doesn't sound too bad at all.
Yeah. Is this going to be like a staple floppy comic, or are you doing
No, it's
square
going to
bound?
be square bound for the main book, and the Ashcan will probably be stapled floppy because it's only 32 pages.
Yeah. So what I did is I didn't do standard bags and boards because mine had spines. That was my thought process, but I ended up getting these cellophane bags that were a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
They were less expensive, but they made for a really nice presentation, I think, anyway. And so I ended up using these larger bags. So I think they went faster than regular bags and
Because
boards.
they slipped in easier, right?
Yep. Yeah.
They cost a little bit more.
No, they're less expensive, actually.
That's actually weird.
Yeah, I could send you a link if you just, so you can compare and look at it. But
Yeah, definitely. Or I'll ask you when that time comes because I may lose that information between now and then. But yeah.
sure.
I definitely because I don't want to end up sandwich bagging it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly. That's the one thing is like, I think the big thing is just making a nice presentation, and like the beautiful thing is your covers all look good. And so that'll be the biggest point. But it's not too big of a deal, really. Like as long as you have a little bit of space and then you just plan and be methodical about it. And again, I'm happy to send you links to all the stuff that I've got. So
yeah, definitely. Thanks. It's weird. I meant to talk to more people about this, but so Yanzi has a fulfillment company that that's my wife that some of her inventory she has to warehouse with and them do for inside the States. Somehow by using her fulfillment company, just for international shipping, it's cheaper running it to them because they have like a cheaper. They have cheaper rates because they ship in bulk. It's almost like if enough of us somehow had a shell company, we could bargain. We could put all our overseas shipping together and negotiate a cheaper rate. Yeah, it's really weird. Like like for our international stuff, like we're basically doing it, putting it together, and then sending them all to her warehouse to ship just because we can get a cheaper international shipping rate. It's really bizarre. Like you wouldn't think that would be the case, but we did the math.
Yeah, it just made it gets so expensive. And I would have thought that because I use stamps.com to do my stamps and everything, but you don't really get a discount. I was wondering like how many thousands of dollars do I have to spend before I get a discount, but it just not really like I don't know.
It's weird, I guess, because that fulfillment company just does so much fulfillment for other people. They just qualify for cheaper international rate. It's like she's just able to kind of duck in up under their umbrella, and they're already handling her stuff. So she taught them like, you just mail us that, put the books together, but then just mail us those and have the print, and we just get a cheaper rate. It's like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But, yeah. It's weird. It just makes you wonder if you're overpaying sometimes. That's the thing for shipping.
Yeah, I thought the same about printing too.
Yeah.
Like you'll get quotes sometimes from printers that are just like twice as much. It's like, well, I'm glad I checked a few places because I would have really, really overpaid if I would have went with this one printer. I don't know.
It's weird too because I think like major comic companies, like they, like somebody like Image or whatever, they negotiate the rates, But it was funny when I worked at Image and I did creator-owned stuff there, they would charge me at like $1,200 just for a plate change for a cover.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Billy Tucci, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? That's all it costs?" He's like, "Yeah," because he did so many variants on sheep. And I'm like, but Image told me this. He just laughed. He's like, yeah, they were lying to you. And I'm like, my God.
Yeah.
Like, how much money did they take from me? It's like, because I had a variant cover like on every one of my comics. So it was just.
Yeah, that it's like, it's so cost effective. I don't know. The printer I've used is like 250 or $300, something like that for a plate change.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, but
that's what I'm saying. That was a standard rate that Image was taking from everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, where was that money going? It obviously was going into their pocket, not the printer. You know,
Yeah.
it was Image just saying, "Hey, it costs 200. Let me get 1,000."
Do you think they were trying to discourage variant covers?
No, yes and no. They did eventually, but they were against retailer variants. They were okay for like in the catalog variants. It was really weird. But I was there. I think it was like Jim Zub did some book, and he literally had like his orders went up, but he also had like something like I want to say like 10 variant covers for retailers. And it was so super weird too because retailers were actually asking for them. And
Yeah.
Image said no more. And then everybody had to stop. And they said it was inflating sales numbers, which it was. But you have to understand some retailers, you're asking them to sell a creator owned book. And they're like, well, can you give my shop something special? So I can draw traffic in. So it was like I understood the retailer's perspective, and in a way, I understood Image's perspective. But it was almost like they were doing it as a political reason to be anti-Marvel comics. It was their stance because that was when Marvel was
Yeah.
doing like a lot of variant covers, and they were just like, "We're going to take a different stance on it." But what was weird and kind of dumb is they said we're not going to do single issue variants like that, store variants and stuff, but we will do retailer trade variants. And it's like, well, retailer's not going to buy that. That's not what they want. And so they offered that, and nobody but maybe Barnes and Noble picked up on it.
Wow. Yeah, and that's most customers aren't looking for trade variants. That seems a little strange. But I mean, that was probably around the time like Eric Stevenson was super outspoken against Marvel and some of their practices, and then he just one day got really quiet. I've always wondered about that.
How he got quiet, or just that he was outspoken?
Yeah, well, because I know when he was outspoken, he was saying, I mean, a lot of similar things that we're saying now.
Yeah, he was against the gender bending, race swapping of characters as a sales gimmick, which All New, All Different was doing, which probably doesn't age well if people look that back up for Eric. It probably doesn't age too well. But at the same time, Image and the people at Image were super SJW, so it was kind of weird that he said that.
Yeah.
This was what we're talking about is that era where they were doing the all new, all different, where Falcon was Captain America and Thor was a woman and Asian Hulk, all that stuff. He was kind of, he basically called them out on it, that they were just pandering to a demographic or a false demographic or something. It was just to turn heads. He was pretty blunt, but what you're referring to, he does annually usually. I don't know if he's done one this year yet, but there's like this annual Eric Stevenson State of Comics speech he goes or something.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at it, and sometimes there's some truth in there, sometimes there's some wisdom, but he's usually trying to position himself opposite of Marvel and DC for the most part and criticize them.
Right. Well, he had, and it makes sense, like you'd want to draw a distinction between this is what we're doing, when especially when you're competing to be the number 3 spot or the number 2 spot possibly. Looking at the year coming up, but they're trying to draw a distinction, but it seems like he used to be like before Comicsgate, he was saying a lot of the same kinds of things, and then he kind of got to this point where I watched one of those that was recorded state of the comics industry, and he was going off on how inclusive they are, and it was just, it almost, I don't know, I could be reading between the lines, but to me it seemed like, oh, these are unapproved opinions, and maybe he heard from people that told him that those were unapproved opinions. I don't know, but he had to try to find a different way to sort of put Image apart from the rest of the industry without disagreeing with the identity politics stuff.
Yeah, so Image is in such a weird spot in the industry in general because it's weird now because I see a lot of people ordering Image, like a lot of like Spawn is still selling pretty high despite they're like a 10, like whatever he had his, was it 300 issues or 100 issue anniversary?
300, I think.
300. So even past that, like 303, 308, wherever he's at, like the sales are good on it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, they're like good sales, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is the first appearance in Ninja Spawn. This is another, whatever." And I don't know if that's retailers investing in that. Like, or it's almost like retailers trying to tie their revenue up into other books that are not Marvel and DC. Maybe like that they feel like that's more secure
Yeah.
investment for. Because I don't know if people are really. I mean, maybe he captured a lot of people's attention with that anniversary thing. Maybe it really was a jumping on point. I was a huge Spawn fan, so uh, good for him. And I've met Todd a couple of times, and Todd was actually happy that I was doing work at Image, but that was very shoo shoo, get out of here, because this was like kind of like the Kelly Sue DeConnick, Paper Girls, Brian
Yeah.
Spawn type era, which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, I like Saga to some extent, but it was very I don't even like to use the word independent. Like, I don't know what to call it. Alternative comics, more adult driven comics.
They were trying to be the HBO of comics. I think that's what Eric Stevenson said even.
Yeah, no, so much of it was all like TV pitches. I
Yeah.
mean, and you see it now. Like, look at Paper Girls is going to be an Amazon original. And now it was before Stranger Things, but Stranger Things come out, and it's like, oh, you'd almost think Paper Girls was ripping off Stranger Things in a weird
Right.
way. But no, it was the other way around, I guess. So I mean, no, I don't know. It's so weird but there was a lot of TV driven pitches coming out of Image. A lot of people floating ideas, in comics that were really just concept things. And
Yeah.
so Image had this big thing with 9.99 trades, and everybody, retailers, like, everybody was getting on it. You didn't have to, but it was, you would basically not make some money on your first trade in hopes to hook people for your second trade. And then even people that did adopt it, like Robert Kirkman, he is it Kirkham or Kirkman? Kirkman, right?
Kirkman.
Yeah, he
Yep.
he basically stopped it. He was like, I'm not, he took Walking Dead #1 and went back to full price. So there was some logic. It did help certain books get picked up because it was so cheap, but that was something Image really did want everybody to do. That was like there for a while. That was their flag, is we're gonna have a cheap 9.99 trade, you
Yeah.
know, which makes sense if you have 3 or 4 trades. But if you need the money from that trade to even fund the next book, that's problematic.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I could see The Walking Dead. He knows he's going to sell books, so why have your biggest? Because your number one is going to be presumably the best seller, so you're
right.
only going to be making profit off of the diehard fans, I guess. But on the other hand, I could see how someone like Jim Zub, when he was starting, I know, I'm sure that like even on Amazon now, his trades for any number one, volume one is $9.99.
Well, that's how Invincible
So
lasted for so long, though, was with the trade sales. It wasn't single issue sales. They never really had like solid sales on Invincible. I mean, they had solid sales, but I mean, it survived with the combination.
Yeah.
That book maybe even lost money on some point, if you really, depending on what the artist was making and stuff. Ryan Otley. I don't know. If it wasn't for the backlist of trades, though, like, so in publishing, especially Vertigo, this happened a lot with Fables. They could, if they put out Fables #4, basically it would cause, like, there would be initial orders for that trade, but it would cause people to go back and order volume 1 through 3.
Yeah.
And so even in Vertigo, with low numbers on single issues on some of those Vertigo books, sometimes, like, they started chasing the tail of the trade, and it was just about lose money on singles, get to that trade, and then we'll sell our backlist, all
Yeah.
to the Borders and Barnes and Noble. And I felt like a lot of Image books were doing that too. Like, once they got up there, I mean, things like the outliers, like Walking Dead, of course, were phenomenal things on their own. But there's some other books out there, like, I mean, Saga again was a good one. I think Black Science is one I keep thinking of, the Remender one. I wonder sometimes if it was selling that well or if it was, selling to backlist. Pretty Deadly, I think, was another one.
Yeah.
Different things he did, but it seemed like there was a big niche crowd of a lot of SJW books coming out of Image, and then a lot of those guys just, that's the weird problem with, and it'll be the same with crowdfunding, I'm sure. With it's by creator. Nobody's making these creators put their books out, So Clint,
they're doing whatever, well, kind of whatever they want, but let me grab this super chat real quick. Eddie Winkler for $5. Thank you very much. He says, "Hey all, hope everyone is doing good. Sovereign Wolf Clan Destiny launches Saturday. Sign up to receive an exclusive card with purchase. Take care." That book, I have seen art from that book. It looks exceptional. It looks very good.
It's really good.
Yeah, that's coming out, launching Saturday. So yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it.
Are you doing more Downcast or?
Yeah. So I was, we'll look at that right now, I guess, while we're talking about it. But so I was planning on not doing more Downcast. And this is my first series, but I've got, it seems like I should, because, well, I also have a lot of ideas for it too. So creatively, I want to. I didn't think I would, because I thought, well, this is my first series, I'm learning and stuff. But I've got a publishing deal with Alterna. I've had a lot of people reach out to me that want more, and so I think I've planned on it. I'm investing in it. Yeah. We're just gonna do more, and so I don't know. I'm stoked for that opportunity, but it's definitely like, it's strange. I'm in a weird place because I've grown so quickly in the past 2 years, starting from basically nothing. I've written a couple novels. I had some writing experience, but I wasn't published in comics when I started. So it's just strange. So Downcast, it's like, if I make $30,000, it's great. You know what I mean? It's a profitable book. It works. I'm not, I'm not lining my pockets with that or anything, but I'm making the book, and it's working. It's building sort of a reputation for me. And then it goes through Alterna, and hopefully I expand my readership base. At the same time, I'm convinced, well, look at Fatal, we're $87,000 now. And so I'm definitely seeing, like, if I go the blockbuster route, there's an audience for it. So I don't know. So I'm trying to balance it out and do a little bit of both. Dracula, I think, is going to be a blockbuster because people are just constantly asking for it more than I thought they would be. So yeah, Eddie Winkler says, yes, more Downcast, please. So yeah, you guys want it, I will do it.
Are you going to do a different take on Dracula, of course, or are you?
Oh yeah. It's so initially I thought I'm going to do,
well, I mean, I'm not asking you to spill beans on I was just curious if you're doing like a standard retelling or if you had a spin on it.
No, it's going to be a modern day Dracula. I met with an editor last night, actually, to kind of I hired an editor, it's for I'm putting it out myself, but just to kind of go over the story, and I want it to do good and be its own thing. I don't want to do a retelling of Dracula because I feel like that's already been done in comics and everywhere. So it's going to be a modern day take, and I think people are going to like it. So
did you? I've watched a lot of vampire movies, just different ones. I'm always interested in it, not just the classic Dracula story, but just other vampire stories. Did you ever see a movie called Cronus?
No, I don't think so.
Like CRONUS or something like that. It's done by Guillermo del Toro. It's one of his first movies. It actually has Ron Perlman in it, a young Ron Perlman. It's about this antique dealer. He comes across this type of gold scarab thing, but it punctures your skin, and it basically makes you into a vampire. And then you watch this dude with his this grandpa with his granddaughter, and him figuring out he's kind of a vampire without knowing what's happening to it. It's actually pretty interesting. It's just a off the wall take on vampire stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like one of Guillermo del Toro's earlier movies. It's pretty funny. I like Ron Perlman's character in it. He's debating the whole movie if he's getting a nose job or not. And keep in mind, this is Ron Perlman. That kind of, has the skull of a gorilla. So.
I know it's not the most attractive man in the world.
No.
But he's like he's perfect for Hellboy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things to me. Vampires have been done so much that I want to get to no sparkly vampires. I want it to be creepy, suspenseful. It's a horror book, but I also want it to be something new, totally different take people haven't seen before. So that's the goal. And again, it's like it's not something. It's a public domain character.
Jamie Anderson has another good take. He knew the movie I was talking about, but another great vampire movie that again is different is Let the Right One In. There's that, and then they redid it as an American film. Both are exactly the same story. You can watch either one. There is an American version and then the Swedish one.
Yeah.
It's just a weird modern take because it's basically like this little girl that's a vampire moving next door to this little kid. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. If you're into that type of weird vampire thing. They're just weird alternative takes on vampire stuff. It's weird because not a lot of people do vampire comics. And then the people that do vampire comics, they always want to go the sex route for some reason. Everybody's sexy and, everything's about hot chicks or something.
Yeah, to me it was like, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is what I'm trying to, what are the roots? Because that's part of the reason why people want me to write it. A big reason, we'll be honest, is just my last name. So I just, I just fell into it. But I try to go back to like the original subject matter. And it's like Dracula was not a handsome fellow. You know what I mean? He was creepy. He was older. He was pale. He was strange, but he was rich. And so he had some things going for him. He had some power. And so that's kind of that's what I want to sort of draw from. So the goal is to make him just be disgusting. I do have an artist that has agreed to draw it. And then I had this one shot kind of 20 pager that I was planning to do, which I still think is a great story, but people were saying that they wanted Dracula to be something bigger. They wanted it to be epic. And once they said it on my live stream, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Then I agreed. I started hearing it from more people. And so I'm still going to do that 20 page, but that'll be sort of like the ash can, like the backup story. And then the main thing, we're going to do a bigger story. And I'm not going to announce the artist just yet, but accomplished artist. I'll tell you offline if you're curious.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it should be fun. And again, it's like that's the cool thing is people are asking for it, which again 2 years ago I would have just killed for it. Wouldn't even believe that people would be wanting me to write a story so that they can read it. So I don't know. It's cool. This is the state of indie comics now. It's really cool.
It's so weird too because with this stuff, because you guys are basically ordering these books with I know that sounds so weird, with whatever preview information we give you. So like it's kind of reminds me of an old comic story where they had canceled X-Men before they knew what the numbers were on X-Men, so then they had to reboot it. I don't know if you know that. Like back in the day, there was an original, like they had canceled X-Men, and then I can't remember if it came back as the Uncanny X-Men or something. And then there's the cover with Juggernaut as the big bad guy. But the only reason they canceled it is they hadn't had the sales data, and for some reason, I don't know if somebody messed up on the sales data or something. They're like, nobody's buying this, and then it turned out to be one of their top books, and then they just had to bring it back. But my point with this is like, sometimes we don't like. I really don't know people's interest in Starlight Cast despite what they're backing until they actually read it, and then by then I'm already I'm already planning other campaigns, so it's kind of interesting. It's like like with Downcast, you're saying people are asking for more, but it's kind of like an after effect of
Yeah,
putting the book
yeah.
out.
It's taken me 2 books to get there to like know, like, is this like, am I continuing the story? And it's so weird because you'd think because you're being crowdfunded, you're getting the approval ahead of time, and that's true. But then you've got another campaign. Like, if you want to commit to do a sequel, then you really see, like, is there an audience that's still wanting this? And so the second time around, it almost feels like a bigger risk.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen any. I'm sure the chat will think of some examples. I haven't really seen many number 2s as far as crowdfunding goes that have just been total flops compared to the first one. I'm sure that there are examples, but for the most part, they've been pretty strong. So, like with Downcast, I took most of my profits from Downcast 2, and I've just like, okay, I'm going to finance this thing. We'll get it done almost completely before we even launch the next campaign. So I hope it works. It feels like a little bit of a leap of faith, but I don't know. We'll see. I guess that's the business. So
Yeah, it is a interesting model because, like you said, there's the people that backed it and then they get it, and then I noticed that some people get more backers as they're fulfilling if they're in demand. When the
definitely,
book, so like it's like, and then campaign 2 potentially could get even new backers than
yeah,
the previous one. So you got your return customers plus, that's somebody made this comment. That's why Hollywood makes so many sequels is because they've done so much branding on the first movie.
yeah,
They spent so much money, so the sequels technically are kind of more of a financially better investment than the first movie. I think there's a few movies where maybe they broke even or lost money on movie 1, but then moved forward to the sequel just to try to make money off of it, or they felt like it had potential one way or the other. So somehow that reminds me a lot of this, what we're talking about with the,
yeah. And that was the same conclusion. Time will tell, but like with Downcast, the more I got thinking about it, and some of it was watching your boy Zach's videos, and he's been trying so many new books, which is cool. But at the same time, it's like everybody knows about Jawbreakers, and so there is some value even in a relatively new franchise. There's still name recognition there, and so I don't know. I think, especially for me, it's like I've got to deal with Alterna. I'm going to try and do this, and my goal is, I'll just say this publicly too. I don't care, but I want to be the best selling book at Alterna. If I'm doing single issues and it becomes like the best, if you're the best selling book at Alterna, even it's a small publisher, then you should continue it, right? It would make sense,
right,
and
right.
it would be more of like the affordable book. But yeah, see, here's like Jasper says, plus you can bundle volume 1 and 2 in campaign 2. That's how I bought the Downcast books. I sold a lot of Downcast number 1s on the second campaign, so there's a lot of market depth out there where they would be interested in your book. They just haven't heard about it yet, or it takes them a million times, I guess, to hear about it. So
Yeah. Well, isn't it the advertising? There's some metaphor or slogan in advertising. Somebody has
7
to hear it
times.
7 times,
Yeah. Yep.
before they buy it once. Yeah.
And some people out there, I think it takes them 40 times. I swear. I'll
Yeah.
see, like, I feel like I talk about it every single day, and then they're like, I got around, decided to back it today.
Well,
Which is cool.
that's though what's bizarre about this. A lot of times I hear about somebody's campaign, and I have to go check 2 or 3 times. I think I backed it, and I've learned to double check, and I'm like, no, because I think I've backed it and I didn't. Like I don't know why, and I wondered if a lot of people, if that happens to anybody else, or if it's just me.
No, I've done that for sure, and I've been disappointed sometimes because then I'll realize and I can't back it, and then I realize I haven't, and so I'm like, what I do? Gotta look on eBay, like, what? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this book, and that's the worst. So people are saying the Jack show's starting up. I think we're gonna wrap up here, but we'll look at these campaigns. Fatal's on Indiegogo right now. Links in the description, but also I will post it here. This is I think people are gonna love this book. The artwork's fantastic. Charlie Snogans is truly amazing. He's been a little busy lately, but we'll see him around again. Don't worry. He's working hard. Downcast Rise and Fall, you can still get volume 1 and volume 2 if you want to catch up. It's as cheap as $35, which is I don't even know how many pages that is. Well over 100 pages of story content. If you want to catch up or get the last of these Matt Weldon #1 covers, which are there's not very many. That's a short print run. Starlight Cats is also an Indiegogo. Only 14 days left. I think 100K is totally in striking distance in that 14 days.
I don't know. That's what Ethan keeps saying, but I feel like it's going to be. Who knows? I mean, I don't. It's time will tell. I'm just happy to get it funded and finally get it out. I'll talk about it later, but there's some interesting stuff about it that I'll talk about later on.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. I see Eric Huffles is, can we hire a tutor to teach Clint how to spell? Is that about Fatal? Is that what this is about? Or Fat L. We're putting a gag in the book based off of the title, so I think people might like that too. Anyway, but yeah, I'm glad that you popped in, Shane. It's really good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I keep thinking I've talked to you like it's probably been a month. I need to talk more. I don't post the link out, or I don't see a notification for it. I don't know which it is.
Yeah, it's been a little back and forth. Last week I just streamed alone last week because I just thought it sounded like fun. But
you needed some alone time.
I just wanted to try it out. I see Ethan do it sometimes, and it's good for your broadcast chops, you know.
I haven't done that yet because Yanzi's always part of it, so if she's not there, people ask for her. Rarely ever do I broadcast alone, so I should, honestly. I think I did one video the other week. I kind of get the idea. It does, like, you kind of have to carry your own, energy,
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah. It's good for you, I think, sometimes, but it makes for an interesting stream to have people on. So but yeah, I appreciate you coming on. You're so knowledgeable too about just comics and the industry and things that, I don't know. It's always good to get your perspective. So I appreciate that.
Definitely cool.
But yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I'm going to end the broadcast. And go check out the Jack Show. I know that has started or is starting soon. Should be a good show like it always is. So thanks, everyone.